Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mad Capper and there's another video on Raid Shadow Legends and another in our series of I Built Them So You Don't Have To. Today we're going to talk about Quargan the Crowned. He is one of the new champions that's been released within the last, I'd say 3 weeks ago now. And he is a champion that has gone a little bit under the radar. Is he usable? We're about to find out. I think he's going to be usable for my account, but is he usable for your account? Let's find out together. So without further ado, here he is, Quargan the Crowned. As always, let's start with his stats. You see HP 17,670, attack 903, defense 1222, speed 103, all great. The one that really stands out here of any importance is honestly his speed. You want him to be fast, or at least relatively so. Faster than certain champions would be the best way to put it. Certainly faster than the enemy, and we'll get more into that when we use him in the arena. We use him in dungeons, but let's take a look at his kit to understand what's going on here. First, Attunement, which is a 6-turn bookable to 4-turn cooldown. It places a perfect veil and a 50% increase attack buff for 2 turns on all allies whose attack is higher than their defense. Places 60% increased defense buff for 2 turns and a block debuffs buff for 1 turn on all allies whose defense is higher than their attack. So a lot to unwind there. Just consider it this way: nukers are getting veil and attack up. Defense-based champions or champions who you are trying to make more defensive are going to get the block debuffs and increased defense. Keep in mind, you can play around with that. If you have an HP champion, you can have a little fun. You get to decide. So maybe you have a Mountain King, you give him a little bit of extra attack somewhere in his stats to be able to kind of fool this into thinking that's the way you go. Fine. It's going to put the increased attack on, which doesn't do anything for you, but it's going to put the veil on him, which is always going to be nice. Or the vice versa, you want him to be more defensive because you go second, or he might have to take damage, whatever the case may be. Then boom, you put Mountain King with a little bit more defense and attack, and you go there. For the most part, it's going to be defense or strong sustained champions are going to get the increased defense and the block debuffs, and then your nuking champions, your high attack champions are going to get your veil and attack up. His A2 here has Overgrowth, which is a 4-turn bookable to 3-turn cooldown, which heals all allies by 15% of their max HP. You do me dirty. Plarium, you do me dirty. I just get rid of the word there. Can someone like censor the word there in Plarium Office? Whatever, I'll get over it. Of their max HP, and places shield buff equal to 15% of their max HP on all allies for 2 turns. And then finally, you've got their A1, which attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of increasing the duration of a random buff on a random ally by 1 turn. You see here, no debuffs, no need, no turn meter, no nothing. No accuracy needed. These are the fun champions to build because not needing accuracy opens up a plethora of different ways you can build them out. I've chosen one, so why don't we take a look at what I've done. We'll talk about how we might be able to use this guy in different scenarios, both in dungeons and in the arena. So here's my Quargan the Crowned. Like I said, there's plenty of different ways you can build him out. I was trying to build him out in resist, realizing, of course, I just don't have the gear to do a high resist, but this is going to work very well for what I need him for. And as I get better resist gear, we can build him out even further and further. So here it is. We've got the Stalwart gear, and the Stalwart gear is just his survivability. And I also happen to have some pretty good resist gear in there. You can also, if you decide, you can make him heavy defense, heavy HP. He's got the numbers, you know, 1222, 17,670 isn't going to make him that 7k defense or that 100k HP champion, but you can definitely give him strong defense or HP abilities. But what I decided here is that I wanted his speed specifically to go before a certain champion. We'll get into that when I show you some of the scenarios, but mostly I just wanted him in the arena to, I didn't want to have to put immunity gear on him. I wanted a champion who was high resist that could sit there and then he could put the block debuff on the defense champion, you know, as this scenario goes on as A3. So that's how I decided to build him out. We'll take a look at his stats. He's got 43,864 health, defense at 3,100. So still pretty good stats, even though that wasn't our focus. Speed 222 and 582 resistance. We do not need crit. He doesn't hit very hard. He's only got the 1 attack ability, which he's not going to use until the 3rd turn anyway. So really trying to make him be an attack champion is a bit of a waste. So there's how I built him. If we check out his masteries, again, I did this, and I think I would probably change my mind. I did this before I really tested him. I don't think you need the offense tree. I think you should go defense support, and as much as I dislike it, probably go down this with the heals and the shields. And then I just figured I wanted the resist, so I wanted the 50 resist. Figured we could let him take some damage, selfless defender as well. But really, this guy's like, it's pretty open as to what you want to do with him. If you were to build him out with a little bit of attack, yeah, maybe you could still go offense. But support's probably the best thing for him. I think resist is probably the best way to build him out. Or unless you're going high HP, you can build him out with bulwark instead. That's never a bad idea. But I wanted him to go resist. I wanted to try to get that going. So that's why we built him here. I don't think this is a champion where masteries, at this point of my testing at least, I don't find masteries to be a key piece of the puzzle for him. So there he is. Now we're going to take him in. I'm going to take him in a couple different scenarios. And this is what I meant when I said we're going to test him a little bit differently. So we're going to go through 2 scenarios in a random dungeon. Well, not random, in Fire Knight, just to kind of give you an idea of how you can use him. We're not going to build a team out for him, because you have to build a team around his ability to be able to use his ability. And that's going to cost a lot of silver and a lot of time and effort that, as much as I love you guys, I don't think I need to do to illustrate how to use him. So what we're going to do first is let's go into the Fire Knight. And I've already kind of tested it, so you'll have a pretty good idea. And this is using his A3 to your advantage. Now, this is a team that probably is not going to get through the waves without the waves taking hits. And a lot of these waves there's a couple AoE, but there's also a couple single target. So to illustrate, lower speed, we're talking mid-game champions, or slower overall setup, where the enemy's going to get hits. And these are my cold hearts, for example. Now, in my case, I kill the champions before they ever... my guys will actually cycle through the veil, so it's a little bit more difficult to show you, but this will illustrate it with the sample champion. So obviously they're going to attack those two if they get a chance, but now he's put a veil on them because, of course, they are attack higher than their defense. And then you see here, he took a shot. These two have AoE. That AoE should have killed them, but because you've got the ally protect and because you got the veil, and then these two here, which of course are single target, they can't attack. These two would have been dead if not for that ability. Now they go, of course, they're exposed. So in this case, I know that I'm way faster, right? But let's prime it. Let's make sure that we are getting there. So we're gonna put the shield up. We're gonna run through their first set of turns here. Actually, we're gonna really prime it. Get there. First set of turns. So now we want to get back to him, and boom. Now we can shield, and now you're gonna see that they're gonna take a turn, but it's the same scenario, right? You're protecting your 2 attack champions who are a lot more frail, that might get killed on these sort of rounds, and this way you're actually allowing them to get through. So now here we got a ton of HP champions, and the scenario here is not only am I able to, well, we're gonna ignore her ability for a second. Not only do I have the ability to increase their defense, because I'm pretty sure maybe one of them might have a higher attack, but this is what we get here. The problem with this ability is it uses their max HP for the shields and the heals. But the advantage of this ability is it uses their HP for the shields and the heals. So we're building a team to make use of that. And now we're getting something that's using the heals of these champions. So at least, I mean, this is 15%. It's not going to be her level of shield, but at least it's something. Now, the third, and for me, the most important way to use this champion, now we got to go through all this, is actually in the arena. And you're thinking, oh, the arena. Well, here's the deal. There are only 3 champions in this game that have an AoE veil. On top of that, one of the champions I don't have, and that champion is Duchess. Duchess is an amazing champion, well documented for those of you who have followed me on my YouTube channel of how much I want this champion. I don't have her. She has an AoE veil. The only other 2 champions that have AoE veil, there's also, let me not get ahead of myself. There's also a targeted veil. There's only 2 champions with targeted veil that can pick the target. So two of them, one of them is on Revive, the Hermit, and Wolram does with the lowest champion with the lowest HP. And then there's two other, Seneschal and Infernal Baroness, that target a person. The problem with targeting a person is you don't get to decide who that person is on auto. They do. The AI does. And the AI rarely seems to pick who you want to. Often will just pick the leader, your team lead. Well, I don't want my Coldheart to be team lead, right? And in the case of Arena, I don't want my nuking champion, who I'm trying to veil intentionally, to be there. So I don't have Duchess. These two targeted AoE is not going to do what I want. So what options do I have? Now I'm down to Rector, Drath, who I love. She's an amazing champion. And Quargan. Well, what makes Quargan better than Rector is Rector veils everyone. And the problem is, while Veil improves the amount, or reduces the amount of damage incoming, it's still, now that everyone's veiled, it's like no one is veiled, right? I want to protect my champion, not make everyone veiled just to reduce damage. And that's the one problem with Rector versus Quargan, is Quargan is only protecting champions whose attack is higher than their defense. And how does that work for me? How does that work for my account? Well, I'll show you. It is his new best friend. If there's ever been two people who were made to meet in this universe, and I have a whole win sheet to prove it, it's these two right here. It is Candraphon and Quargan. This is finally an opportunity for my Veil to work on this champion. I have always used Candraphon as a counter champion. What I mean by that is he is a go second champion. He's on my defense team. He is also on my counter for Hegemon teams, because those are the places where I can use him. I put him in immunity. I set him up with shield set champions, and often I'm using my Krisk now. Before that, I was using Mountain King. Before that, I was using Sir Nick. It was all about protecting him long enough to get him to go. And then what happens if I go first? Well, shit. He's not invis, so I typically didn't use him. I'd use Foley. I'd use Ethos. But there are times when this is the champion you want to use. Now, I know there's a Duchess on the other team, but this is just for illustrative purposes only. I know I'm going first. Now, Veil will self-activate. For those of you who don't know how Candraphon works, if you have them and you have Quargan, they're a match made in heaven. This will only activate if the enemy increases turn meter by default, or if he casts his A2. Those are the two scenarios. So in this particular case, now I don't know, it depends on the masteries. I don't see any masteries that are making it happen, so that's good. Well, okay, there's the master. Son of a bitch! Thanks a lot. However, it's still only a one turn. So even in this case, even in the scenario where one of their masteries has boosted turn meter, which has caused my Candraphon to veil, I'm still only a one turn veil. Well, now I can actually use it as a 2-turn veil. And why is that important? Well, it just so happens I didn't kill everyone on their team. But now I still get that extra damage opportunity. And boom. So here's a perfect scenario. We're going to be much faster. There is a Torment here, but that's okay because I have a Torment counter team now, and that's this team right here, because I've got a Arbiter in immunity, I have a Ceres in immunity, I have a high resistance Quargan, and I have an immunity Candraphon. And so we're going to go through here. And I am significantly faster, so we're probably not going to get that passive where he's going to automatically veil. But good, it doesn't matter, because here we go. He's veiled. It's a 2-turn veil. Now, why is this so important? Well, there's two reasons. If you don't have Candraphon, if you do, you probably know. Number one, he increases the damage when attacking under a veil buff by 40%. So this is going to increase his damage. He is already a hard-hitting champion. This is going to increase that by 40%. This makes him significantly harder hitting. This makes him, I would have to test, but I think harder hitting than Ethos. Maybe we'll have to do that test at some time. But so the other thing is, because it's a 2-turn, say that now this team I'm probably going to one-shot. But say when you're platinum pushing, or even when you're pushing to the limits of your team, I guess the best way to put it, he may not one-shot anybody. They may all be alive after his first shot, which means he doesn't get a second turn, and he's going to be sitting there, and a lot of the times he's sitting there open. He's usually slower than your other champions, and then he gets killed because he's a high nuking champion. Well, now that you've got a 2-turn Veil, he has that opportunity to survive. If you have Duchess, none of this applies to you. If you don't have Duchess, everything applies to you. This is an amazing champion for Candraphon. Now he's under Veil. Now he can attack. Now he can hit those high, look at the 84,000. Now he gets a second turn. We're going to try to hit him again. We weak hit twice because the Plarium, 35% chance to happen every time. All right, here we go. Big Bertha herself, Ursuga. That's a heavy. So we're going to go back to our top tier team here. I assume we're going to be considerably faster, but if not, we can also reduce turn meter here to make sure. Look at that. There's no one. They're not getting anywhere near. See, this says whenever they fill their turn meter, but he's going on a passive. I'm a little bit confused about that, but who cares? Doesn't matter. We're going to a 2-turn Veil. We're getting that attack up. Again, why is that important? Attack up an extra 50%. The 2-turn Veil, extra 40% on this, and on his extra hit if he kills someone. If he doesn't kill anyone, then he's still got Veil to reduce the incoming damage. Boom, we kill 3, she down. Of course, we weak hit, and we're gonna hit again, weak hit again. Plarium, I swear to God. Done deal. That extra damage, when you see how much damage, 220. He's hitting like a beast now because of what Quargan the Crowned can do. So some pretty good examples. You have him in dungeons, you have him in arena. You see where he activates. Now this doesn't just have to be Candraphon. Final thoughts on Quargan the Crowned. He's not your usual champion. A lot of champions are obvious, right? Either they're good or they're bad. They do well or they don't do well. And there's a few out there that you might wonder about. And I think this is one of those champions that once you get down to how you can use him and you tune yourself to be able to use him, whether it's in PvE or PvP content, I think he's going to be very useful. You can use him to protect your Candraphon and him. If you have a Candraphon and you don't have a Duchess, you probably want to build him. I'll tell you that right now. He's going to increase Candraphon's damage. And that's anywhere that you can use both of them together, they're going to be useful together because you're increasing damage and you're decreasing the damage taken from Candraphon. And that's never a bad idea. The flip side is he is also able to protect any nuking champion. You saw it in the example we brought in the 2 Maves that needed, you know, the single target nukers were not hitting them. The AoEs were hitting them for less. That's another good thing. Now we have fully developed champions and you've tuned it correctly. That's what's going to happen. Keep in mind, 4-turn cooldown, 2-turn Veil. So if you are sped yourself up to above 200 speed and you're going 2-to-1, you're going to have to prime those abilities to make sure that they're actually saving the champions you want. It's just something you need to know about. Doom Tower, I probably wouldn't use it for your normal dungeon runs. I don't think you necessarily need them. For Doom Tower, it might be a lot more useful when the speeds that the enemies you're facing are a lot more similar to yours. Anyway, that is Quargan the Crown. My final thoughts on him, I like him. I think there's still plenty of opportunity to test to see what we can do with them, but I like the fact that you can use him to bolster your HP team. So like I showed you with the HP guys, as long as they have all high HP, his A2 becomes somewhat useful. He's good for defense teams because he's going to put a defense up and a 1-turn block debuff on all high defense champions. And of course, the primary use of him is to save or reduce the damage incoming on your nuking champions by that perfect Veil and the attack up to do extra damage. And of course, in the arena, like I said, he is a Candraphon. Him and Candraphon are 2 peas in a pod. They, if you don't have Duchess, you should build this guy. So those are my final thoughts. What do you think? Is he too niche? Is he more widely usable than you thought? Let me know in the comments down below. Finally, and of course, foremost, I want to thank you for joining me on this video. I want you to be kind, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video.